So pick the channels that make sense to you, that make sense to your customers, and that you're not going to hate yourself every day if you have to get up and work on them. And then experiment. Experiment, set parameters for what you expect, measure it, make sure you know what you're expecting out of those channels, be consistent in showing up in those channels during that experiment, and then don't be afraid to cut it loose and pivot. You're a small business, you're a startup, you have a lot of flexibility with what you're going to do.
Where to start with your marketing, how to pick the right platform, and also how can you scale it for small business owners. That's who this episode is aimed for. That's what we're going to be talking about. And I have Katherine with me today, which is a marketing expert. So we're not just going to be talking about repurposing content and clipping up content as I do. We're going to be covering a lot more juice and other subjects than just that today. So just to start us off, to get us acquainted with you, Katherine, where did your journey with marketing start off?
In a really weird place. I went to art school, so all of my guidance counselors said, hey, you should go into something with science and math and all that really heavy lifting stuff. And I'm like, no, man, I'm going to be an artist. So I went into graphic design. That's where my life started. But I loved numbers. My backup career choice was an accountant. And guess what blends creativity and analytics and data? Marketing. So I ended up having my professor actually be my very first consulting client when he hired me to do social media marketing for his business. And as such, I've been consulting for about 17 years, sometimes full-time as a head of marketing or a VP or a fractional CMO, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes just doing consulting projects with small companies starting out for the first time, startups, or service-based businesses, and sometimes with large companies like AES and MasterCard. So I've worked kind of all over the map and learned quite a lot along the way that I just love to share with other people.
This is why we choose to put Katherine on that. Now you know. Now you know. It's always good to get, there's things that small businesses can learn from big businesses and also the other way around. And just going to help us get a rounded episode where we're going to cover the crucials of the different subjects. But just another kind of question to start us off, how should a small business think about marketing?
So I always like to say that marketing is conversations, right? You're having conversations with people. So how do you have those conversations and how do you start those conversations is usually when marketing comes in. So a lot of times people think about marketing as leads and conversion rates and, how can I sell? It's basically an extension of selling, especially for small businesses, right? If you're doing marketing, you're probably also doing the sales, and you're probably very passionate about what you do. But marketing is getting that story out there. So you want to get that story out there. You want to have conversations and you want to have the right conversations with the right people. So all good marketing needs to start with understanding who your customer is, who you want your customer to be, and then how can you talk to them? That is the foundation of good marketing, and that should be the foundation of any marketing for small business. Who are you talking to and how are you talking to them?
Yeah, I think one of the best examples I ever got of why you should be very specific with your marketing was by another marketer named Andrew, where he talked about, you could very easily sell his mom a car back when he were a kid. But if you marketed as the car going back and to from work, she wouldn't care because she didn't go to work, but she was driving kids to school every day, so she did need a car. Mm-hmm. But if you hadn't gone that specific, and that was your client, then you wouldn't be speaking to him. But too general, even though you would be speaking to moms in that age gap that need a car.
Yeah. So, I think we've all had that marketing moment where, you've seen the same thing marketed a million times, but until you have that aha moment where you're like, oh my God, I need that.
Yeah.
Because they're speaking to your pain point, you don't realize you need that, right? So you can be looking at a pencil all day, but if you're not using a pencil, it doesn't mean anything. It's just more noise. So.
And there's plenty of noise in today's day and age.
Plenty.
But on the other end, you can also get nearly paralyzed by overanalyzing everything. So what is that right? How to make sure we have the right balance? We're targeted enough, but we're not just targeting for the sake of targeting and actually just wasting time.
Yeah. And I think that's where having a good marketing plan comes into place. So for big companies, that's lots of moving pieces, lots of people, all that kind of stuff. For small businesses, once you know who you're talking to, you need to determine two things. What do you need to say, right? What's the value that you can bring? And how are you going to say it? and put that all together. And then where are you going to say it, right? How do you choose the right place to talk to these people? You've got 8 million channels out there. You can do social media, you can do paid advertising, you can do user groups, you can do events, you can do stores, you can do, any number of things. But how do you kind of pick the right platform and the right place to have those conversations should be the next step in your strategy.
Well, you nearly asked yourself the question. So if you finished up there, nearly.
But the question is, how do you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. So how do you pick the right channel, right? And I think the temptation there is to, you go on the internet and these days you ask ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, where should I advertise? Or you read, from people who are doing what you're doing. So if you want to be a successful health coach or a business coach or something like that, you go and look at other people who are doing what you want to do. And then you just try to copy what they're doing. I think that's a very common strategy that people employ. The danger of that is that most people focus on too much too fast. If you are trying to be going viral on TikTok and going viral on Instagram and building up your LinkedIn profile while also building a website, while also being in user groups, while also doing networking and doing all of these pieces together, the odds of you doing any one of those things well is actually pretty low, right? You're spreading yourself too thin. So I like to say the rule of 3. Pick 3 things that you're going to add in your marketing plan. And it could just be one. If you say, oh, all of my clients have came from LinkedIn, go make LinkedIn your main platform. Go hard on LinkedIn. Like, make your content there. When you feel like you own that channel, then move on to another one. But most people don't know what works for them, especially if they're starting out. So they want to do a little experimentation, right? Say, I'm going to try Instagram, I'm going to try LinkedIn, and I'm going to try email marketing to a subscription base. And then you look, which of those channels is performing for you? Which of those ones is getting the best results? Which of the ones is having the results that you want? And then do more of that. And then maybe drop some of the experiments that aren't working. Just because you start something doesn't mean you have to continue it. If your Twitter account's dead, let it go. Or X. If your X account's dead, let it go. Close it down so people don't think you're just out of business. And then try something new. Go try digital ads, maybe. Or go try social media if you haven't done social yet. There's lots of things to try. Don't pigeonhole yourself into trying everything all at once or having to stick with what you try.
Yeah, I agree with you. Picking all the channels and trying to do all the channels, it's very hard to keep up with. Because if you just post the same piece of content on all channels and try to find something that works for all, it's the same as trying to market to everybody at the same time. It doesn't really work because it's not going to really be natural to any of the channels. I do like your argument, start, go out, try stuff. And even if it is the same piece of content, just post it on all the channels. Because you might find out it works a lot better on YouTube than TikTok or the other way around.
Exactly.
So just go ham, post stuff around.
Yeah, and if you don't have a lot of resources to try multiple channels, it's okay to reuse content. So if you have a blog piece, you can send it out as a newsletter. You can turn it into a Substack. You can turn it into a post on LinkedIn. But the one thing that underlies all of my marketing, and I try to make people focus on, even if you're not numbers oriented, set an expectation with yourself on how you want that to perform and what you expect it to do. Be realistic, and then see if that actually happens, right? If you expect a post to get at least 2 likes and 1 comment and it's crickets, might not be working for you. Given enough time that the experiment has time to run, 30 to 60 days is pretty reasonable for a lot of platforms. And then if it doesn't work, it's not working. And you can move on to something else. But there's nothing wrong with taking a single piece of content and repurposing it on multiple platforms in multiple ways, because you're probably a team of 1 or 2 or maybe 5. You just don't have enough resources to be doing everything.
No, and don't try to be. Focus on what you do well. I do think, and this includes myself and the person listening, we get caught up in seeing that a bunch of other people that are very successful, they're posting everywhere. forgetting that they are a team of 100 and not one
Absolutely.
or 5 or however many it is, or even 10. It's not a massive difference.
Yeah.
And it's also just a lot easier when people know you to pop up on a new channel.
Yeah.
One thing I would encourage people to do in that trial period is always find one thing to improve for the next video or the next post or the next email. Doesn't have to be massive difference. It can just be using a different word to describe your audience. So maybe you call them cheerleaders or something else.
Yeah.
But you just to try it out. See if it works. It doesn't work. If you get a couple angry emails about them being called cheerleaders, you probably shouldn't have done that. I don't know how I would feel about it.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point about trying new things within your marketing too. Not just new platforms, but everybody always likes to hyper focus on their logo, right? Their logo and how they represent themselves. But what a brand is and what you're building is a brand. Your brand, your business's brand. The consistency is important. Like how you show up in spaces is important, but also varying your message, because at the beginning and when you're getting started with marketing for your business, you often don't know what your brand voice is and you don't know what's going to resonate with people. So if you are like a coach and you're going out there being like, I'm an executive coach and I help people, find confidence at work, and that's falling flat, don't be afraid to change it. Like you can change it and be like, no, I'm an executive coach that helps high earners earn even more, or something like that. Just changing how you're going out a little bit each time until that piece catches on is perfectly acceptable. And then you stay consistent with what works and cut what doesn't work.
Yeah, just trial and error. Especially if you're starting out. You can go out, do a bunch of research on the internet. It's not going to be the best of advice because that would be situational. Of course, you could get very lucky and get advice that fits your scenario perfect. Could happen. It is possible. Most likely not going to happen. Which is where that trial and error part comes into it. Finding out what works and just really fine-tuning your effort. For me, I do really enjoy going to networking events because I can see a live reaction of what people think when I say it. I can see, do they clean up or they just keep writing their notes and didn't react at all? Then it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Because sometimes with a post, it might have done just what you wanted, but all of the followers that you hit with that post were your silent followers. They did read and did enjoy it, but a lot of people do not engage with content.
That's true.
Thinking about myself, besides on LinkedIn, I'm not really an engaging follower on any other platform. I might leave a like, and that's it. Yeah. I'm not going to leave a comment, like once a month, maybe. Even though I generally love that person's content. But I'm like, I'm here to enjoy the content. I'm not here to boost your ego up.
And that's an important point too, is whatever you choose to do as a small business in marketing, choose something you like. If you are a person who absolutely wants to hide in a closet at the idea of a live event, don't do live events. Don't be pressured into doing them because you're not going to show up as your best and most brand-centric self, right? Maybe your sweet spot is the subreddits on Reddit and you're going to build a little community over there instead because you're an introvert. That's okay. If you don't enjoy doing it and you don't have a team to do it for you, you have to only pick things you're going to enjoy. Personally, I have a wellness business as well. For my wellness business, I only use Instagram. I hate Facebook. I'm not great at it. Well, I'm great at it for my clients, but for my personal brand, it doesn't resonate with me. And I never went viral on TikTok. For me, it was only Instagram and YouTube. Those are the only two things that I was comfortable with for my business. So just because your friend says you have to do TikTok and they also have a small business, if you're not comfortable with it, it's going to be so much heavier of a lift to try to get the energy to do those types of things. So that's important too. At this scale, you got to pick what you can actually commit to.
Great point. And on all of those platforms, whatever one you pick, there is enough of your target audience to fill your business off for a big business.
Yes, there's more than enough pie to go around, no matter No matter which oven you hop in.
Yes, and you don't even have to hop in all of them.
Yes. No.
Like the point that hit it home for me was seeing people like book like do private jet stuff on Instagram and getting clients from it. I was like, and people are saying it's just kids on here. Well, kids apparently got a lot of money nowadays if they're booking private jets and buying them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then why shouldn't you be able to sell anything else that I would say that's less expensive on there?
Yeah.
And that's where your point to enjoyment came in. It's if you would go in and actually enjoy the platform you're making the marketing for, you're going to perform that much better, which is going to outweigh however else the different the platform.
Yeah.
And that's
if you
what
enjoy the platform, it will perform for you because you're probably already hanging out there. And if you are your target audience for what you're trying to accomplish, then you know that you're there, right? So if I'm trying to talk to other B2B SaaS companies and I enjoy LinkedIn and I enjoy engaging on LinkedIn and all the people I enjoy following are also on LinkedIn, my audience is already there, right? It'd be way different if I was trying to talk to B2B SaaS companies through Instagram or TikTok or Blue Sky. They're just not there. Or if they are, they're not in the mindset for what you're presenting, right? There's that mismatch of like, if I'm running digital ads for a B2B SaaS company on Instagram, when I'm cruising Instagram, is that what I'm looking for? No. Like my brain is not in that mode. My brain is in show me cute puppies and kittens and really funny, things that I'm going to laugh at. Like that's where my brain is at. So it's also matching, your target audience with that. Just because you love TikTok, if your audience is not on TikTok, that's also a mismatch. So yes, you have to enjoy it, but it also has to make sense for your business.
But you can, if you then try to introduce Kit Kats, and not that's a chocolate bar, cats into it, then you could do it.
You could.
It's possible to get it done. It's just about being creative enough, is what it comes down to. So it can be challenging fitting certain things into it because, like, an example I like giving is accounting because I find it boring. My second degree or backup career would not be anything to do with accounting or anything like that at all. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
I like the numbers.
But you can, if you make it interesting, it does work for TikTok. I see this lady that talks about all of these big influencers that give inaccurate tax advice, at least according to her education. I know absolutely nothing about the American tax system, so I'm not speaking on it. But she does well on like Instagram, for example.
Yeah.
With accounting. Boring. But because she's taking these viral clips of these people that everybody knows, it actually does work for the platform when people are just sitting there and scrolling more for enjoyment.
Yeah.
Because they get hooked in by something else. So it really comes down to the creativity, but do be wary of where are we posting and how are we speaking to them, because we don't want that mishmash to happen, because then nothing's really going to come fit unless you're extremely lucky and you don't, well, at least I don't want to base my business from luck, and I don't hope you listening want to base your business from luck, because go into the casino then, and that's a much easier way of just gambling if you want than doing business, at least.
It's hard to capitalize on that too. If you say you do go viral on a platform that's a mismatch for your ICP, your ideal customer profile, there's nothing to say that viralness and those impressions are going to turn into customers. And they're
most likely they won't, actually.
I've actually worked with a few people that had a huge following on social media and did all the amazing things and really got deep penetration in those fields. But those were not where the customers were, and their business was not doing well because of it, because their sole strategy was to go viral, but it didn't equate to actual sales. So
it doesn't pay the bills unless
you can't pay the bills on impressions.
Unless you're on like a platform that pays extremely good for ads. But again, ads are not paid for impressions. It's paid from watch time. So
it's paid from advertising revenue. If you're an affiliate or something like that, that's different. But for a lot of businesses that are out there that are trying to turn exposure into sales, impressions cannot pay your bills, clicks cannot pay your bills. It has to be a conversion. You have to convert them to a customer. So your content has to be so amazing that it's going to push them over the edge. Or you just have to have the right match where there's enough people there that are looking for what you're selling to get you over that border.
So if you really had to sum it up, what would be the thing that people should focus on to grow their marketing efforts in business?
Start small. Really, really learn your customer. Learn your customer inside and out. What do they like? What do they hate? Where are they hanging out? Learn your customer. Pick small things you can start with that you can feel good about. So pick the channels that make sense to you, that make sense to your customers, and that you're not going to hate yourself every day if you have to get up and work on them. And then experiment. Experiment, set parameters for what you expect, measure it, make sure you know what you're expecting out of those channels. Be consistent in showing up in those channels during that experiment, and then don't be afraid to cut it loose and pivot. You're a small business, you're a startup, you have a lot of flexibility with what you're going to do. Don't say, oh, I've always been doing, X, I can't give it up now. You can always give it up, you can always pivot, you can always try something new, and you never know what you're going to find if you try something new. So learn your customers, choose wisely, and don't be afraid to change and experiment.
I think that's actually one of the biggest differences between, or advantages for small companies, is that agility that you spoke about.
Absolutely.
So being stuck in your ways, you're basically turning yourself into conglomerate, hard word apparently, without any of the advantages of being one. You don't have the capital, you don't have the team, you just have the ridiculously slow speed when it comes to implementing new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love working with small businesses and startups for that reason. You have so much power to pivot. Like, the power of the pivot is incredible. Like, you can change your mind and say, nope, next quarter we're going to go in a completely different direction. And hell, we're going to throw up a billboard in Times Square. Like, you can do stuff like that. And there's not as much red tape and process and stuff in between. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility to find things that work and find what is that growth path that's going to get you to the next level of business.
When sitting here and speaking about pivoting, it brought up a question I want to ask you that I've heard a lot when I speak about people changing up is, well, ain't that going to alienate all of my audience? What's going to happen?
I think if your audience was strong enough, you mean pivoting your messaging or pivoting your platform?
Pivoting your messaging was what I was thinking. Well, I guess we can two-part the question, and you can answer both, because now I'm curious to both.
Yeah. I think pivoting your platform, this is good. This might be a hot take. People are really convinced of their own self-importance, especially in business, where they think more people are paying attention than are actually paying attention. You will have your brand champions, the people that love you, the people that adore you, the people that are, commenting on everything and being like, yeah, let's get it. You'll have those people. And there's a good chance that if they're that passionate about your brand, they're going to follow you wherever your brand goes next. So if you say, like, if tomorrow TikTok gets shut down in the US, that's on the table, and you say, hey, everybody, I'm pivoting over to YouTube, or hey, everybody, I'm pivoting over to Instagram Reels, or whatever it may be, there's a good chance a lot of them will jump because they want to follow you, because they find value in what you do, because you're doing your value selling well. I think the whole, like, oh, these 2,000 followers I have really, really need me. Oh my gosh, I can't possibly give up on, whatever. You're probably only reaching a fraction of a percentage of those audiences because the algorithms are at play. And there's a good chance they might find your content somewhere else. Give them an opportunity to subscribe to a newsletter you're going to try instead. Give them an opportunity to follow you somewhere else. A lot of them that are interested are going to jump. And the ones that are not interested enough to jump are probably never going to convert to customers either. Like, you're not missing much by cutting that loose. As for pivoting your messaging in the beginning, it's unlikely, in the same vein, that you've had enough saturation that people are remembering you for nuanced message points. Like, when you think of Nike, you think of something specific. It took years to build that brand up. There are huge companies that change their logos and change their branding all the time. Like, Dunkin' Donuts did it to just Dunkin'. A lot of other companies have done it too. So if major companies can pivot branding and pivot messaging, pretty sure you can get away with it as a small business. Again, don't overinflate yourself and overthink it. And again, if you're changing your messaging to match your audience that you're trying to attract, what you're going to lose is probably people that were not a good fit for you anyway. So stay true to that authentic brand voice is going to get you the customers and the clients that you want versus the one you don't want that aren't going to be a good fit anyway. So I'm always big on change.
There is a reason why we're pivoting in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason. Yeah, there's a reason you want to make the change, and it's probably because the results are not there. So you're worried about losing bad results. Okay.
I like that framing a lot more. Just using those two words. Are you actually afraid of losing bad results?
Yeah.
Because that makes it even more powerful. Yeah, that's what we want to, right? I like if my teacher told me they accidentally lost my test where I failed, I wouldn't be.
You wouldn't be sad.
Nah, no, I wouldn't be crying or anything like that. I'm like, yeah, okay, that can happen, and maybe I'll play a little bit along with them, but
yeah.
Just
and if anything, it's a distraction, right? If you're being distracted by something that you know isn't working and you don't want to be involved with anymore, and you just want to cut it loose, like, why are you wasting your time and energy on something that's just not working? You know? And sometimes it's because we tell ourselves, like, oh, if I just do it a little bit more, or I just try a little bit harder, it is going to perform. Be reasonable with yourself. If it's been a year or 6 months and it's not working, either change your strategy there or move to a different strategy. Give yourself enough time. I say 3 to 6 months for a test of a strategy within a platform is enough time to know if it's working or not. 6 to 12 months to make sure that you're getting a full annual cycle if your business works that way. 6 to 12 months is reasonable for a channel strategy. So if you say, I'm going to try Google Ads for a year or for 6 months, that's reasonable because you'll be able to see it through the fluctuations in your sales cycle. But yeah, changing your messaging at different times of the year to see what resonates at what time is perfectly reasonable. But yeah, after a year, you need to give up on Facebook or whatever.
You have something against Facebook, it sounds like.
I mean, I have strong feelings about Meta just because their business campaign manager, and I'll say this specifically for small businesses, is really difficult to use. It's not quite to the level of Google AdWords where you need a data scientist to figure out what's going on in there, but it is overly complicated for what it is. And unfortunately, it overlaps into Instagram, which is one of my main platforms. And you can manage all of it together, but none of it is kind of done well. And that's just kind of my opinion. But for some businesses, it's a necessary evil. Like if you're trying to hit a bunch of mommies and your target demographic is like moms are hanging out in the mom groups on Facebook. If you're trying to reach, the boomer generation, as they say, they're on Facebook, go get them. So if it's a necessary evil, you got to use it, but it's not the most user-friendly for advertising, in my opinion.
I've heard about it. I have definitely seen the post around on the internet in Facebook groups, actually, of how much of a pain in the ass they are to get through, especially when things start to go wrong.
Yes. And there's a lot of new technology that's coming out to replicate specifically Facebook groups, because pages have been dead forever, but Facebook groups, I think, are still very active.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to see some of the other platforms. There's one called School. People are migrating to Discord. People are migrating to Reddit. They're looking for other areas to replicate that kind of small group community, and they're coming up with more alternatives for Facebook groups.
Sounds like they're gonna get their act together if they want to to keep people. Well, competition is always good for everybody else that's not being competed against.
Yeah,
it's a very nice
for innovation.
Yeah, it pushes us as well. I think one thing that always really stood to me that Gary Vee said is find the thing that's going to put yourself out of bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Because you want to be the one to do that. You don't want your competitors to put you out of bankruptcy.
Yeah. But even at this scale, small business scale, there's still a lot of pie to go around. I've heard a lot, especially in the fitness and wellness industry, a lot of people will tell you, like, don't become a personal trainer, don't become a yoga teacher or whatever. Oh my God, it's so saturated. And especially in fields like that, like, yes, there's a million marketing agencies out there. There's a million business coaches, but there's always going to be a uniqueness that you bring to your business that is going to be different. And maybe that is the secret sauce that somebody's been missing and looking for. Like, if you can make people's lives simpler, easier, more enjoyable, you have something to offer there. So I give a lot of encouragement to small businesses when they're getting started. If somebody tells you, oh, there's already so many of, XYZ, just ignore them, right? There's no
I agree
reason.
with that 100%.
There's no reason why you can't try.
I was looking through my CRM earlier because I was looking to make some introductions to some of the niches you think. Example, digital marketers, there are millions of them. For sure there is. But when I start looking in my CRM, when you actually start compiling all the different areas and niches that you meet people in, all of a sudden there weren't a lot of the digital marketers. I could find 2 people I could introduce them to.
Mm-hmm.
And we say there are millions. For sure there are millions, but when you start splitting up into how many each person can serve and actually how many potential clients that they could have, there's plenty. There's plenty of stuff to do. Because most of the digital marketers, when you search and stuff like LinkedIn, are like inactive profiles.
Exactly.
They're just boosting up the numbers, makes it thinks like they're millions, but most of them ain't doing stuff anywhere. They're doing whatever they're doing badly.
Yeah,
So
and
just do what you do well.
Back to the beginning, right? If you're gonna abandon the channel fully and literally turn off your profile so people don't think you went out of business, but also, like, be unique in your value proposition, be unique in what you're bringing, and really talk to your target customer. Because even if you do what you were just looking for in your CRM, if you're not good with your messaging, no one knows that you do that. Like, you're exactly right.
Yeah, there is so much opportunity, but we as humans just seem to find all the reasons why we shouldn't do something.
Yes.
Hardwired into us.
Yeah, change is scary.
It's a good thing if you're willing to do the change and willing to take the risk, because if we weren't scared of that, there would be a million good digital marketers out there, and it would be absolutely ruthless if you wanted to enter any space.
Yeah, that's true.
So as a final word to round out this episode, what would you say to the person that's listened a little over 30 minutes to us?
Go for it. Just try stuff. Just try. It doesn't matter if you're going to do it well. I have a client who says regularly, done is better than perfect. So
Yes.
Even if you're 80% of the way there or 75% of the way there, like, just finish it. Just put it out there. In startup, you often hear minimal viable product, right? Your MVP, your first thing you put out there. Is it going to be great? No, but it's done. Just put it out there. Try your marketing. It doesn't matter if your first, few marketing posts or initiatives flop or fail or whatever. You got time to make them better. Just try. Just try. You really,
Beautiful message.
There's a very low area that you're probably going to mess it up so spectacularly that it's going to, unless you say some wildly outrageous things, in which case you might get a different MVP.
It's still going to be good for something, because there are going to be a few podcasters, including myself, that love speaking to you to hear how you can really screw something up so much. How that's even possible, that's going to be a great story within itself.
Yeah.
Always a bright side to something. And what would be a logical next step for the people wanting to reach out to you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, if you're interested in talking about marketing, like I said, I'm one of those open to help people. I love having conversations and helping out. And even if we can't work together, I might be able to recommend someone that you could work with, or that needs your services. So you can find me on LinkedIn, on linkedin.com/in/KT Creativity. KT Creativity is my consulting practice that I run. And you can reach out to me directly through LinkedIn DM. Say that you found me on this podcast so I know where the conversation started. I'm more than happy to talk to you about all things marketing.
And that link will be down below, so it's nice and easy, and you don't have to make spelling mistakes like I do and just be frustrated and don't find stuff anyway and continue on with your day.
Yeah, there's lots of I's in there. Sorry about that.
Well, it's sometimes my writing becomes creative, no matter if it's a simple or not simple word. Be very interesting from time to time. Appreciate you listening, and appreciate you, Katherine, for taking the time and coming on the Business Library and sharing your value with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is fun.